Sue noticeably does not suck. I think that's one of the ways you can describe him for sure.
I would say so.
This will be fun. After that TVZ, got a little bit of mech. By the way, just to kind of give a nod, we did see Swarm Hosts, and I thought Riang's answer for those Swarm Hosts was pretty good. Sensor tower, good army movement, intercepting them, but also we had that interesting kind of moment where it's like, well, hang on here. He has pretty good air superiority, so if you kill the Locust before they land, that seems to be a pretty good tactic. So some interesting ideas coming up from there. And Sue is another player that is able to play interesting styles. Do you think Riang's going to keep meching? Is that something that he does every game?
It's a good question, but if we look at what Sue's been doing recently, it's a typically Sue thing, right? Sue can beat anyone in the world on the right day. In the qualifiers for IEM, just yesterday in fact, he slaps around Zest and Biol. And then guess who he loses to in a TVZ? Time.
Oh. Okay.
Time, the Chinese player Time that we saw debut in ShoutCraft Kings December, who we thought had some promise but was certainly not top tier. He got 2-0 by Time. So it's just Sue. That's Sue in a nutshell. Like, he's capable of beating anyone in the world, and then every now and again he'll slip up and lose to some random guy out of nowhere.
Wow.
I mean, would you call Time a random guy? Maybe not, but Time has no results to his name,
Correct. More random than the other people.
Yeah, after beating the hell out of Biol and out of Zest, you would expect better. But it's, that's just Sue. You never know which Sue you're going to get on any given day. Sometimes it's the dominant one, sometimes it's the one that makes silly mistakes. But what's clear to me is that Sue's got all the talent in the world. Just every now and again, he can't quite translate that into a victory.
Yep.
Ladies and gentlemen, here we are on Overgrowth. To the northeast position, the challenger and the Blue Trunks playing Zerg. It is Sue. Versus his opponent to the southwest position in the Red Trunks playing Terran, currently up 1 game. He is the king of the hill. He is Riang.
And I'll be interested to see, because this is one of the original super mech maps. Back when mech was even less viable, this was the map that you did see mech on. The Terran, as you can see here, has 6 bases on their half, all fairly interconnected by just a few paths, but more importantly, choke points. So if the game does go that route, and Riang wants to return to mech, this would be the place to do it. Now, of course, one of the kind of cool elements of ShoutCraft Kings is that, do you think Sue might have been watching the match before this? Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and say...
I would go with yes.
Yeah, he has. So he's probably very ready to be like, okay, I'm facing mech. This is the style Riang likes to do it. This is how he plays it, and that informs him on how he wants to try and improve on what we just saw.
And we see the factory coming up. Doesn't necessarily mean mech, but it can. The thing is that that's not Riang's only build in this matchup. He's more than capable of playing Bio in this matchup as well. He's not known famously as being one of the fastest players in the world. He's no Maru when it comes to speed with Terran, but he's more than capable of playing a Bio style. What we are seeing here, though, is very likely the same opening that we saw last time. With the reactor timing, we're probably going to see a Hellion opening, followed up by a starport. The question is, where does he go from there?
Exactly. That's where the matchup has settled. We were talking a lot about Wings of Liberty and Heart of the Swarm, very much so. Hellion openings was very common. The point is that they had their own flavor of this is what you do, Reaper, Hellion, that kind of thing. In Legacy of the Void, we're seeing more of this. Still Hellion, still a Reaper, but the much faster starport, and the kind of pivot from there. We've seen Widowmines, we've seen Banshees, we've seen Hellbats. Any one of those is possible, and all of them require different responses, so it becomes a little bit more of a guessing game for Zerg, but Zerg have evolved from Part of the Swarm, where they used to just actually guess and be like, I don't know what's coming, I'm going to be really salty if I don't guess right. And now it's more, no, I open speed, I have 4 or 5 queens, and I kind of absorb but also scout a lot more.
Absolutely true. Here we see that starport. The question is, where does it go from there? There's the swap around to the tech lab again. This time, Sue doesn't hang up. Yeah, you would think so, and that's exactly what it's going to be. Thing is, Sue saw the swap, and he saw the tech lab. So you would think he would be pretty well prepared for this. That said, last game, we saw exactly this same damn thing, but it was a fake.
Yeah. And he saw that, for sure. Like, he was just straight up watching the game. probably listening to Crank and their amazing broadcast of this as well. They are doing that, right?
I believe they're casting right now, yes. They just got done doing IEM, and now they're casting this, because apparently that's all they do now. They have stamina for days.
Those young people and their stamina, I'll tell you.
Well, it looks like that Banshee is going to come out, but I think he canceled Cloak. Yeah, he did. That's interesting. That's a bit odd, gonna say, but I'm gonna say this Hellion run by did, frankly, far more than it had any right to. One more shot would have taken out another few drones.
Here come the drones! Okay, yeah. He's leaving, I guess.
He's out. Yeah, that was weird. Like, the defense wasn't very good, but the attack wasn't very good either, so what we're now seeing is a switch over to Liberators and Cyclones with a single Banshee. Riang's Banshee just got scouted, but the tech lab wasn't working. So, there's a Nidus called, yeah, sure, right, okay, yeah. There's a Nidus worm from Sue, alright.
Well, the Banshee's staying at home, so all of a sudden, never mind, I'm done.
It's leaving, alright. Well, the Overlord is in place, certainly, and a scouting supply depot will be put down. There's always a risk if an Overlord is there that Nidus could come your way, but that's a very unexpected response.
He just doesn't have anything to deal with it, though. Like, the second it pops up, he's going to have all... Well, okay, the Cyclones can drop it pretty quick. Actually, they would drop it super quick. But this might not even be in the main base. This might just be outside the natural. And then it's like, well, what do you do?
Well, it's going to be roaches coming out of it. There's not a huge number of them. But you're right. I'm just looking at the positions. You've got 2 Overlords in place. There's the Nidus worm coming into the main. And the response is on its way. Obviously, you can no longer kill the Nidus. Wow, a triple engineering-based surround of the Nidus worm. I don't know if that actually works, but... This
will not work, though. The Cyclone should kill that almost immediately. He's not targeting it.
He's not. He's actually focusing on the units instead. And as it turns out, that was a really great way of dealing with it.
I'm going to come out and say it, John, and I feel comfortable saying this. That was a good defense.
I would say so. That was a thoroughly... I've never seen that done before, but what he did was he bottled everything up, and rather than focusing down the Nidus worm, he allowed as many units as possible to leave the Nidus, knowing that he could destroy them almost instantly. He lost 5 workers and was able to obliterate the whole Zerg army and the Nidus worm, with taking no military losses whatsoever.
Yeah, small golf clap. I think it was a decent idea.
Yeah, you gotta admit, that's pretty crazy. That said, Riang is still only on 2 bases after all of that.
He did start his 3rd, though, to be fair. He is only on the 2, but he started the command center at the ramp, at least. But now his army is getting interesting again. It's obviously mech, but at this time of a different flavor. It's going to be Cyclone, Hellbat. There is Liberators coming out, as we kind of saw emerging there. But they're not going to find too much purchase out on the map, and it's a Spire in response from Sue, which is... I get it, but even then... Well, no, Cyclones are quite garbage in anti-air.
They're terrible right now.
Yeah. But I don't know. It's like, what, mutas show up, and then the 3 or 4 Liberators push them away, and then he does that weird thing where he adds 3 or 4 Corruptors, but then all of a sudden, those Cyclones become good again. I don't know.
It's a weird pendulum swing, isn't it? The concern that I've got at the moment is the Liberator count is really low, and he's not even building any more right now. There's 9 Mutalisks. 2 Liberators is not enough to push that back. Cyclones are absolutely terrible anti-air now. Just awful in every way. So, unless he starts building 2 Liberators right now from that reacted starport, which he's showing no intention of doing, I think he might be in a bit of trouble here. Yeah,
I mean, just something.
He's got, where are his turrets? He's got no turrets, yeah. He has no, and there's now 12 mutas on the way. So, this is really ugly for Riang. Like, he is not prepared for this at all.
I think the Banshee will spot this, or there's a scan at the natural too, so let's see if there's a response. Now he sees. Yep, so there's the Thors. And that's actually, that'll be enough time. The mutas should not show up. I mean, pretty good. Pretty darn good.
I'm concerned about where those mutas end up being. I mean, there's those 3 different targets. There are a couple of missile turrets now up, but not a great number. The Thors are hyper immobile, but now we have additional missile turrets being added in. So, yeah, it looks like the Banshee ended up seeing it at just the right moment. It was cutting it a little fine, but the mutas shouldn't be able to do too much anymore.
The kind of nice thing for Sue is he's not doubling down. There's no air attack upgrade happening. I believe it's 9-ish meters or something like that. It's not, like you said earlier, 20. You wouldn't do that.
Yeah, he went up to 12, and I think he's stopping there by the looks of it.
Okay. It stops drops. It stops Liberator harass. It's not like it's a complete waste. And 12 is obviously on the more healthy side of how many meters you'd like, but that's still, it's fine. He's okay.
We got the...
I think Sue's in a better position than Leanock was. Let's put it that way. Last game.
Yeah, certainly. The death push isn't here yet from the Terran player. He now has his third base, so that's going to start to really get rolling. But the Zerg player has 4 bases up and running. There's really no harass going on. He has a good idea of what his opponent currently has. These mutas are finding ways in. Like, regardless of the fact that there are Thors in the mix, he's picking off a refinery here, a few SCVs there. The Hellions don't have blue flame, so even if they do get into a mineral line, they're not as dangerous as they could be. The Cyclone count is continuing to grow, which is an interesting choice there by Riang.
Yeah. The other thing that's going for Sue here is that one of the problems Leanock had in the last game was a lot of his peripheral bases were very easy to push. Look at that huge no-man zone in the middle of this map.
Yeah.
Riang is, A, worried about an engagement there, but B, if he stretches out and goes to attack an army, counterattack is even worse on this map. So Sue's got to kind of make use of that. But the other thing that Sue is afraid of is, like I said earlier, this is a map where the Terran can be like, oh, you thought I was going to attack. Well, no, I'm never going to do that. And just turtle forever. That being said, Riang's army tells me that this is an attack mech army, not one that's looking to defend.
Yeah, he's got quite a few Cyclones in it. The tank count isn't insane, so it looks like he does want to do something with it. We've got the Great Aspire on the way here for Sue. Sue seems to be a little bit more willing to commit to a tech path than Leanock was, who decided just to build everything and hope for the best.
Yeah. Yeah, like you said, the tank count not mega high, but again, even just those 5 or 6 tanks over at that 4th means that base is never going to get touched by anything on the ground for right now. Mita's still finding some holes, though. The Thor trying to get an angle.
Yeah, but it's only a single Thor, and there are just enough Mutalisks to break those couple of missile turrets. Like, that's the advantage, I guess, of having 12 of them. A couple of missile turrets isn't actually enough to stop that, so you have to really commit to a defense, and they're going to get shut down now. They got caught between a rock and a hard place here. It looks like they're all going to get wiped out. We would love to take a Viking for that, but it looks like he's not going to get it. He does, yeah, because now he's moving this giant army into attack, and there's a lot here for Sue. He also did quite a lot of economic damage with that.
Yep. He wants to lose him. He's heading into Greater Spire, so this army is also looking to free up some supply. The mutas informed him that there's not many defensive units here. There's the abductions that I was talking about.
Very nicely done. Grabs a Viking, grabs another Viking, and the Thor in the middle there, right there. That's a good amount of value, and those tanks took a while to get there, a little bit too long. Sue would be foolish, I think, to stick around here. He doesn't want to take too many more tank shots, but is able to pick off a few more supply depots before he backs away. So he's dancing between bases, he's finding holes in the defense, and that's something that Leanock wasn't really able to do. And of course, behind all of that, he's got this big tech advancement, a lot of Broodlords on the way.
And again, the difference here is for Riang. Last game, he had 6 or 7 Ravens in this situation. He had a decent number of Vikings. We see none of those things. He's got a few Thors, but on that production tab, he's adding Hellions, he's adding missile turrets. None of these things are going to help against what's coming. And 9 Broodlords is a significant number. That's not, the 4 Vikings have more than their work paid off for them. And I think there's Vipers out there too.
Yeah, if the Vipers are in the mix, then there's only a single Viper left by the looks of it. But Riang is going to need more Vikings and quickly at this point. But the Broodlords are already done. That's the problem. And then they're on their way. So Riang's plan right now seems to be crush the Zerg ground army and go for it. But with these air reinforcements, I don't think he can. I mean, there's going to be Corruptors backing them up. Yeah, sure, there is a Thor or 2 lying around the place, but that's not going to be enough.
He's making the Vikings, like you said. So right now it's only at 6, which is not a good enough number, but it's getting closer. And he does rule the ground. That those tanks and Cyclones and Hellions are more than enough to win the ground. It's just a question of what kind of fight does he take with these Broodlords.
Indeed, and he's going for it. Wants to try and take down a Broodlord. He is able to do so. The Cyclones are going to get ripped to shreds, so he wants to try and trade them out for those Hydralisks, but doesn't really get an awful lot. With the Blinding Cloud in the mix and the Broodlings, this is a messy fight for a meching Terran. Most of the Broodlords did not die quick enough, and Riang's army is being torn apart here.
And it's the Broodlings that are doing it. You'll notice every Hydra and Roach that showed up died almost instantly. But it looks like Riang is going to be able to weather the storm a little bit for now. But even these 3 Broodlords are creating such havoc.
Yeah, they really are. They're ripping through Thors. They're doing so much damage. The army supply of the Terran player is now non-existent. I mean, he's got 4 Thors. He's got quite a lot of tanks. Of course, they don't shoot up, and we're probably going to see a second wave of Broodlords coming in. And here they are.
I do have to say, I thought Riang actually... It's interesting because the initial engagement was like, wow, this is really good for Riang. But then the Zerg turned around, the Blinding Cloud and the Broodlings killed most of the tanks and non-Thor units.
Yeah.
And it was looking like Riang might just die right there. But now looking at this, down 50 supply, of course, Su's auto remax. I think the best argument for why Su is so far ahead is behind this. His economy has been a well-oiled machine.
Yeah,
Sack defenses for Hellions. He has taken very few losses. He's fully saturated. So, yeah, the attack got held, but it's just the first of like 7 attacks. He can afford everything forever.
Yeah, and Riang's looking for that transition again to fast Banshee. And it's an interesting idea. There is actually basically no anti-air defense on any of these bases. There's a spore or 2 on a couple of them, but it's mostly designed against Hellion run-bys. The thing is that there's still a lot of Hydras and Corruptors in the air, so if these Banshees even try to contribute to the fight, they're going to be torn down real quick.
And, well, let me actually just check before I say that. Yeah, there still are Vipers. So Su is doing a better job than Lenog of continuously having at least some Viper presence. Because you're not going to be able to run down those Banshees with Corruptors, and even Hydras are all about, like, catching them as opposed to running them down. But Vipers can actually just Blinding Cloud, and basically all the Banshees have to then go home.
Yeah.
To repair.
We see an attempt at posturing here. I don't think Su cannot break this.
Oh my god.
Oh wow, he can if he gets those Blinding Clouds though. The unsieged tanks. But there are so many Thors behind this. There's so much Terran firepower. It's not going to be enough Zerg to break it.
No.
But we're going to see another wave of Zerg coming in. Several more, in fact, with 6 base economy.
Good trade. Yeah, I mean, this did a lot better than I thought it would.
It killed a lot of tanks. He's down to 6 now.
On the high ground died.
3 Thors died too, which is a big deal. They're going to be hell to replace.
And behind this, by the way, Riang is floating a command center bottom right, but his ability to defend it every time he loses that cycle of tanks becomes, you know, a thing of, it's not even possible. He needs to keep his tank count high, so that's what these attacks are doing. It's essentially a trade, and look at the bank there, too. Riang, not maxed, sitting at sub 500 minerals and gas or so. Su, flushed with cash, maxed again, still on 6 bases, like, and that's going to be the remainder of the game.
Yep. Trying to get that gold. There's the scan to deal with that burrowed roach. But can he... I mean, he would have to take several excellent defenses where he gets a really good positive trade in his favor. And he's not going to get it because Su's on top of it again before Riang is able to get that deployment. We do see the Banshees in the mix, though. They are cloaked and there is no Overlord detection. But there's enough on the ground to run over the tank count.
Yep, and another trade. And the tanks are going to get fully reset. Here comes the Overseer to even make those Banshees hurt a little bit. Yep. And Riang has expanded after this, so it's like, yeah, he holds on, but he's losing supply each time, and his ability to be at 2 places at once is also completely gone. Like, a Planetary Fortress by itself will die to any Zerg army, and that's his option at both those bases. They're just supposed to buy time, but he'll even lose the orbital, or the Planetary, excuse me, so...
Yeah, he doesn't have much of an army left. You know, he lost most of it in that fight. And we have another wave of Su Zerg. He's already almost remaxed versus the Terran, who has 112 supply. Very small army. And I think it's just going to be repeated hammer blows. We're going to see Su run up against that wall over and over again, and eventually that wall will fall.
He's going to actually circumvent the base altogether. He's going to go for this. He does have some Blinding Clouds available to him.
Yep, doesn't get all the tanks with him.
Good
there we
space
go.
there, though.
There we go. He's got the blinding clouds on the other tanks now, and I think that may very well be it for our Terran player. There's nothing really left on the defensive side of things. The army is basically crushed. There are 4 Banshees, which are fighting static defense over the north side of the map. That's not going to do much. GG, ladies and gentlemen, and Sue able to knock Riang off the top of the hill. Nobody gets to live today. We have just a lot of dead kings lying around at this stage. It's getting a little bit messy. Someone's going to have to come clean this up.
Well, it's fun seeing mech in TVZ, but I think this game kind of shows the frustrations and difficulty of mech in TVZ in that I don't feel like Riang made these weird tech choices. I don't feel like he took a super bad fight. I feel like Sue played the kind of normal, this is how you handle mech at every stage of the game. Obviously, he executed at Sue level, which is, again, world class, but this game kind of showed the difficulty of mech. And to me, I still feel like it's very map dependent because only one game ago we saw Leenock get thrown off by how to handle it and get handled pretty well. Like Riang played, lights out. It was not even close. And in this game, it was the same, but in reverse. Sue was never in danger of losing. Sue took little to no harass damage and just smothered Riang until he just stopped breathing.
Yep, that's what happened. It took a while, and it does generally take a while to break a meching Terran like that, but it was done. It may not have been done in a clean way, but it rarely ever is against that many tanks, and it was an economic powerhouse of a Zerg player on 6 bases. Like you said, no harassment. There wasn't really the opportunity to do it. There was too much static defense. It got to the point where Sue just had the spare money, and he could afford spines.
Yeah, I mean, Riang tried. That's the thing that kind of gives me that this will be interesting for conversation because it's not like, again, Riang just didn't have, like, he just didn't do something and we all look at that and go, well, that's obviously why he lost so bad. He was harassing. He did have a good tank count. Like, he did play defensively. He didn't take a bad fight, but he just got traded out. Like you said, it wasn't clean for Sue, but it was clean in every respect from a Zerg perspective. Even losing the armies was with purpose. He didn't take bad fights. He took good trades, which is, as the way Zerg does win games. They're the ones that just reproduce way faster.
Yeah, it's especially true against a meching Terran. You're taking out key, expensive, difficult to reproduce units with stuff that can be easily rebuilt over and over again. It did the job very well. You pointed out very nicely earlier, of course, that Riang was never able to get that Raven count up. The Vipers were used way better by Sue than by Leenock. So everything kind of went Sue's way this time around, and Riang unfortunately not able to make the same magic happen twice. The upcoming game could be very interesting indeed. I'm looking forward to seeing how this one goes.
Dream come true. That's what I'm seeing here.
I'm making somebody's dream come true. I'm not really sure whose. Let's find out. We haven't had this matchup today, so let's see what can happen here. Sue has proved himself against a Terran player. However, there is a bit of a knife fight of a matchup right now, and of course it is Zerg versus Zerg, and who better to engage in that than Dark?
Yeah, Dark, I mean, the joke that I was making is that earlier in one of those transcriptions, someone had said, I would love to see Dark. Well, here you go. Dark, one of the absolute best Zergs. Still, people would probably consider him the best. But lately, he has also fallen into the little bit more of a, like, can beat anyone, is one of the absolute best, but can also lose to some people that you would think, how did he lose to that guy? Because we've seen what Dark is capable of. And Sue is one of those guys, by the way. Their ZVZ battles have gone back and forth, and it's pretty fun.
Yeah, which is why I expect, hopefully, a really great ZVZ out of these two. Whoever will triumph is going to be a nightmare to deal with for whoever shows up next. There's no doubt about that. Both of these guys are just extremely capable in all matchups. So the question is, who gets to stand and represent the Zerg race and who will fall here on Habitation Station for our next map?
ZVZ is the white elephant gift exchange of matchups in StarCraft 2. Sometimes you get a super helpful, amazing bottle of wine or some kind of weird piece of technology that's way more than $20. Other times you actually get a piece of shit, like a piece of shit in a box.
True enough.
And that's ZVZ.
I don't disagree with you on that one. It's an interesting and odd, inconsistent matchup sometimes. Let's see what these guys can do. two of the best Zerg in the world clash right here on Habitation Station. The reigning king to the northeast position in the red trunks playing Zerg. It is Sue. Versus his opponent to the northwest position. In the blue trunks, also playing Zerg, it's Dark.
This map, actually a good ZVZ map because it's close by airs, which kind of encourages players to try things like mutas. There's a lot of cheese potential. The gold base throws things for a loop. You could play it straight up standard. I've seen some crazy, crazy stuff on this map. I think back to, and I cannot remember his opponent. It might have been someone like a Leenock or somebody, but Jadong with that slow lane, or no, excuse me, it was this Queen Evolution Chamber defense against the, you know who it was? It was Hyun, I think it was.
Yeah, I think so.
Anyways, I sorry guys, we're being a little bit nostalgic, but that was an amazing game. This is an older map, so there's a lot of history on this map, but these are the new age Zerg players. Sue and Dark obviously been around a little while, but they've really come into fruition in the last year or two. Dark, as we've been talking about for years, but has only just last year become, in my opinion, the top tier world-class Zerg that he is now.
Yeah. You know, the runner-up in the WCS Grand Finals put on an excellent series against Beyond, who was obviously just on another level that day. He was playing out of his mind, and there were games when Dark looked like he was out of his element, but everything up to that point, Dark looked dominant. He disposed of opponent after opponent, and as you mentioned, he's really just come out of the shadows. He was a great Pro League player. He put on some excellent results in Pro League, but hadn't really done so well in the individual leagues. Now, of course, he has the opportunity to do that. He's off on a bit of a rough start this year. He hasn't been dominating everybody, but that's just the way of it. You know, it's a brand new year, brand new map pool, a lot of different opponents to deal with, and this StarCraft is a very difficult game. It can be quite inconsistent.
It is. You're exactly right with that last point. I mean, that is StarCraft. There's a term that is used in Brood War, and it's Bonjwa, and that's to describe someone that's like mega dominant for long periods of time. To me, one of the kind of cool analysis of StarCraft 2 is that a lot of people would tell you there has never been a true Bonjwa of StarCraft 2, because while we've had some periods of domination, it's not the I Love Oof or Boxer or Nada period where like they were actually number one for 11 months. Like they literally were the absolute best for almost an entire year. In StarCraft 2, there's so many map changes, there's meta changes, there's more bouncing, of course, and there's just so many top-tier players that are learning and getting better and fluctuating that we just really haven't had someone that's been absolutely mega dominant for that kind of time. No. The closest I would say, there's been a couple, it would be like Atasia, Innovation back in Heart of the Swarm, but even they do not qualify as Bonjwas.
And unfortunately, Dark will not be qualifying as that anytime soon either.
No.
He did breeze through his GSL group, no problem at all. But you can easily argue that it was a weaker group. He 2-0'd Cure, and he 2-0'd Leenock. So, good performances, but not the top tier of player. He's been dropping series to Alive a lot recently. In fact, he's done it not once, but twice in the Base Trade Star League. Both Week 1 and Week 3, he's lost 2 series there. But right now, his Zerg versus Zerg is looking really solid. I don't believe he's dropped a Zerg versus Zerg game this year. I'm looking to find one. He dropped a map to Solar on the 2nd of January. Outside of that, he has not dropped a Zerg versus Zerg map the entire year.
Well, it is January. I mean, so yes, this month he hasn't dropped a CVZ except for the one Solar, I guess. But keep in mind, a lot of these guys also are only playing matches against other top-tier Koreans, which is also, I think, another kind of caveat to these stats that makes it so impressive. A lot of, in the height of StarCraft, 2010, 11, 12, that era, a lot of these Korean players were getting ridiculous numbers, but they were doing it against a lot of foreigners. They were doing it against some Koreans. So those numbers weren't as impressive. Now, Koreans are in Korea, and when they're not losing maps, they're doing that to the other players that are otherwise not losing maps as well. Yes. That is when it becomes ridiculous.
Yeah, if we see streaks of any form in that respect, then that is where you start to get particularly impressed. And even if you look at just this month alone, that's still, I believe his win rate is still 82% in this matchup. That's pretty damn good, and he was only playing against top Korean players to do that. So Dark is in a good position to try and take this, but let's have a look at the current situation on the map right now. We see that Sue is brazenly taking that gold base. There doesn't seem to be any intent whatsoever. No, Dark is now about to take the gold, by the looks of it. Which is, I don't know, is that unfortunate for Dark that he's going to do that right now? Because he doesn't have a large enough army to completely destroy, or indeed maybe even successfully fight Sue at the moment, and Sue has a good minute lead on that gold base.
Sue gonna try and find a hole here. He's probing the natural.
Doesn't get it.
And to your point, yeah, it's the situation is basically that Dark doesn't feel super comfortable moving out, even though he probably feels he has the stronger army. It's that the Lings will then immediately pour in, and he's not sure that he has a stronger army. And as we can see, there have been roaches coming out for Sue, so while he is a few behind, he's not much behind,
no,
so the attack would not go well for him because the reinforcements are obviously cleaned up.
Yeah, so it means that Sue has got a bit of a lead in terms of income. Dark does have more drones, but that's made up for with the fact that a lot of the drones are mining the gold here for Sue. Little bit of a tit-for-tat engagement between these two here. A lot of queen backup here for Dark. That's going to be quite useful. But the Lings coming in for the flank right here, but the Banelings are already prepared for response, and the rest of them go and detonate in the middle of the roaches. Is there enough here from Dark to break this? I don't think so. I think Sue may very well be able to overwhelm this army.
He may be able to overwhelm it, but let's give a best-case scenario for Dark and say he holds this off, or he even wins slightly.
And he's going to win now with the reinforcements. But yeah, is he able to do anything beyond that? Probably not.
Well, he might not even be able to hold it. The 3 queens are going to go down. Okay, exactly. There's my curse with CVZ. He does actually hold it, but he loses the 3rd.
Yes, he does.
He trades the army, fairly evenly. You can see the supplies are very similar, but the economy difference is gigantic. He's going to try to take his 3rd at the non-gold, knowing his opponent has the gold. That's basically like saying, I'm going to take a 3rd, but I'm going to still be behind economically no matter what. And that's a weird choice to make in this position.
Yeah, it's a little bit rough, no doubt. So if we assess the current situation, we look at the size of the armies here, they're both pretty damn even. Sue with 4 Ravagers and 12 Roaches. Less Queens for Dark here as well, and the lack of that 3rd base. So, I mean, Sue is, as a result of that, pretty damn far ahead. And I don't know, in a mirror matchup, it doesn't even look like we're seeing a tech transition. Dark is trying to take that base further down, realizing it can't hold the gold. But this is not looking good at all for Dark.
No. When you're way ahead and you're the one attacking for the win, that's when you know you're really ahead. Like Sue's here again. He has, like you said, a pretty close in terms of numbers army, but he's the one attacking despite the lead.
Yeah, and that's GG.
Dark's not. He's just had enough. He's like, I'm out.
I don't blame him. I think he was going to lose that regardless. That was a really, really solid build there by Sue. Dark, I don't know if you can say that Dark maybe misread it. I mean, Sue went for that gold a lot earlier. Maybe if Dark had gone with a full-on 2-base all-in from that position, he could have broken Sue, but I don't even know if that was true, looking at the numbers there.
I mean, the problem started way earlier. Just Sue gets the 3rd eons before Dark. He has the huge Lings to counterattack. I mean, Dark even connected with his Banelings about as well as you could possibly ask for.
It was
something like 25 Zerglings evaporated to 2 Banelings, and still the fight went in favor of Sue. At the end, he ends up pulling back, so it's not an overwhelming win, but he kills the 3rd. He kills most of the army. It was amazing because it looks like Dark was asleep at the wheel, and Sue is this super world-class, which he is, by the way, 4 times GSL runner-up, I think it was.
Yep.
3 in a row, or maybe all 4.
King of the Silver.
Yeah. The poor guy. But he's amazing. Really well played.
Nicely done. Very nicely done there by Sue. And he may very well be the person that actually gets a win streak going. We're going to find out after the break whether or not that is true. In the meantime, we have a message from our sponsors, shoutcraft.ting.com. Mobile that makes sense. We'll be right back after the break with yet more action here from ShoutCraft Kings January 2017, with Sue currently taking his seat on the throne with 2 wins. Some more great games to come here. Do not go anywhere.
You may be expecting to see Ting plans. We don't do plans, we do rates. Plans require you to guess how many minutes, messages, and megabytes of data you're going to use each month. If you use more than you thought you would, you're punished. If you use less, you're wasting money. Unless you have a magic 8-ball that tells you exactly how much you're going to use, a plan can be a losing proposition. Instead of offering plans, Ting's simple rates adjust to how much or how little you use each month. On Ting, minutes, messages, and megabytes of data are independent of each other. You only pay for the level you reach for each one. If you go over 1 month, you switch to pure per unit pricing. If you don't use any text messages, you don't pay for any text messages. If you use less than 100 megabytes of data 1 month, you pay for less than 100 megabytes of data that month. As a result, your monthly Ting bill can be different from month to month as your usage changes. Use less and you'll pay less. Use more and you'll pay a little more. Best of all, one account can have multiple phones under it. All your phones draw from the same pool of minutes, messages, and megabytes. An active phone costs just $6 per month. The more phones on your account, the less you pay per phone on average. $6 per phone on your account, plus whatever you use that month, plus only those taxes and fees we're legally required to remit on your behalf, equals your monthly Ting bill. Ting doesn't charge recovery, admin, or any other cash grab fees. On Ting, we want you to save money, and we made it easy to do. By using Wi-Fi at home or at work, you avoid using mobile data when you don't need to. So just by turning on Wi-Fi on your phone, you save money. We also give you tools that put you in control, so you can save even more. We've made it easy to set rules for an individual phone, or for your account as a whole. Creating one of these rules is as simple as completing a sentence. For example, say you want to be alerted the moment your phone has used 200 voice minutes. When Dad's phone exceeds 200 minutes, do this, email. Take it a step further by setting a cap. Caps allow you to turn off specific services on a specific phone when it reaches a level you choose. For example, when Daughter's phone exceeds 500 megabytes, do this, turn off data. One note when setting caps. It's always a good idea to build in a little wiggle room. You're in control of your bill with Ting. You get the tools and the tips you need to save money on mobile each month. Ultimately, the less you pay us, the happier we are. That's how business works, right?
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to ShoutCraft Kings January 2017. Our current King of the Hill, it's the one and only Sue. A god of Zerg versus Zerg, able to take down Dark, despite Dark's recent massive winning streak in the matchup. And of course, dealing quite nicely with Riang's mech.
Yep. He's hit that ceiling though, John. I'm really excited to see who's going to beat him here because he's won 2 games, and if there's any kind of agreement we've had so far, it's that all these players are going to get a $700 check, and then that's it. They need to stop playing StarCraft.
Yeah, I mean, it's a nice little monthly distribution, is what it is. Yeah. Less of a tournament, more of a... I was about to use the term welfare, but perhaps not. Let's not do that. No, absolutely not. It's a redistribution of wealth. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, a spreading of funds. Microtransactions, or yeah.
I'm not sure you count $700 checks as microtransactions, but sure, why not?
In my world, John, yeah, I sometimes lose track that people don't make that little amount of money, you know, because I'm just like so filthy rich, basically.
Yeah, you're the biggest baller I know, Jeff.
Yes, the cabin in the woods, I own the mountain. That's what it is. No, guys, none of this is true. It's good money, it's awesome wins, and it's a great stage. Like we said, I'm actually really excited about Isanyu kind of making a name for himself with Chinese players and fans. They've had this weird re-emergence of StarCraft 2 in the last year. Like, of all places, StarCraft 2 started to kind of catch on more in China. I don't know. Things work differently there. So it's cool to have players coming out and winning. And other than that, it's been a day of back and forth. Really good players playing really well. And then not, you know what, to be fair, we haven't had anyone shit the bed. We haven't had a player just be like, because I remember December, we definitely had like 4 or 5 of those where it was like, this guy's amazing. And then they just don't scout something or do a terrible
just
cheese in the
disaster.
bed. And we're like,
yeah.
Okay.
Probably the closest we've got to that would be Nightmare, but that was, that was what it was.
Fair enough. That's actually a good point. I think that does qualify. But as you said, and we talked about this, he's like the up-and-coming guy. If we saw Zest just shit the bed, do some weird and bad, we'd be like, oh, it's disappointing. But Zest lived up to Zest and was defeated in a fair and interesting game.
Now, while we're waiting for our next competitor to show his face, assuming he has the spinal fortitude to do so, would like you to call in to the Ting line at 1-888-6-CHEESE. That's 1-888-6-CHEESE. Tell us about your favorite player, why they would win, a big streak in ShoutCraft Kings, something funny, something passionate, something, and you can win yourself a Ting Esports t-shirt if you so desire.
I have some more.
Great. I can't wait to see what the auto-transcriber has done to them. I'm not sure if we've got a single message through so far that hasn't been, let's just say, creatively interpreted by the software.
Yes. Well, this might be one of my favorites. I'm literally just reading all of them, by the way. I'm not picking them. Some mentioned me, which is nice. This one says, bring back K from his Canadian spider hole.
What?
I can't make it up.
Who is K?
What is a spider hole? Okay.
I want to know.
One.
I need to find out who this is now.
Hello. I'd like to see blank. He's the classiest French player I've known, and he has the best attitude. Good luck, and...
We may have discovered a slight problem with this whole voicemail transcription thing. It doesn't understand any of the player names.
No, but then look at this, though. This is what's so funny about it. Like, those are just weird broken. Then this one says, hey, I don't have a specific person that I want to see play. I just like to see more tender matches. And I would like for Jeff to...
matches.
Tender matches. And I would like for Jeff to stop calling every Korean adorable. Really, really weird. Thanks. Bye.
But you want some more tender matches. Surely that calling the players adorable would result in those tender matches, right?
I think he's got a storm of emotions inside of his body that he's got to figure out pretty quick. I think he's adorable. Do you want me to keep reading more?
By all means. We may be switching servers since we currently have no response from our competitor at the moment.
You know who we need? You know who we need? We need parting. It's been too long since we've had a bad boy. If he supports you, no, it's just we just need that personality. We just need that boy. And that's the kind of who will proceed. Hand gestures and his opponent. But you know, deep down, he's got a heart of gold. And that's why we need part of.
Yes, I would agree. Unfortunately, he's spending far too much time in Overwatch and Heroes of the Storm at the moment. So I've been told. So perhaps not. We'd love to have someone like Parting, but yeah, he doesn't play much StarCraft anymore, I'm told.
I started watching TotalBiscuit because of ShoutCraft Kings. My favorite would be Nib, of course. I'm an American. So bring Nibel. And I haven't seen him play yet, and if he somehow manages to lose because of the bad blank, time give him a second shot.
I mean, that's mostly English, right? To some extent.
I think innovations should be able to play again. Blank is the best. These are awesome, dude, actually.
I'd say we didn't quite think this through, but frankly, it's working out way better than I expected.
Oh my god. This is the best one yet. Neeb should win ShoutCraft King so he can get over his tournament anxiety and make StarCraft 2 great again. USA, USA, USA. Love the term shit and being in control. Thanks. ShoutCraft Kings. I don't think we've heard that yet.
Oh my god. Wow.
Oh, here we go.
Oh,
okay.
Apparently it was Kane, by the way. Kane was hiding in the Canadian spider hole.
Okay. Well, that would be an obscure reference for a player. He hasn't played StarCraft
He hasn't played in a while, yes.
Hello. My name is Shotgun Fetish, and there is nothing in the world that gets me quite so excited about StarCraft as when you guys whip out the dong. So I feel like you need to go find J-Dong more wherever he is, whatever he is doing, and just whip him out so that he can go on a nice, long, hard win streak. Thanks, guys.
I couldn't agree more. There's nothing better than raising the donger every once in a while.
Yeah. This one says, bring back blank. I'm craving some cheese. So that really could just be...
That could be anybody. Yeah. That's a very flexible addition there.
I want to see iNcontroL as the challenger. He is hilarious, and if nothing else, it would help some other player get a streak going. All right. All right.
Oh my god.
That's all of them for now. So, guys,
we're giving that guy a t-shirt, no doubt about that. That guy gets a
Yeah.
t-shirt. He can have two, frankly. Holy crap. All right.
What server are we going to?
We're on NA,
Oh,
so
I
if
see.
you want to hop on over to NA. In the meantime, I'll introduce our next challenger. It's a little bit of an unusual one that you may not have seen in a while, so I can't wait to see how he plays. One of our Eastern European Terrans. We've been mostly doing Koreans today. Can't really blame us. Most of the Europeans are off playing the IEM Europe qualifier. And losing it. Fools. In the meantime, you could win some cash if you happen to be good enough. Let's see if you're up for it, Mr. BeastyQT.
Oh, okay.
It's been a while since we've seen him, isn't it?
It has. I was going to try to do that. He's Bulgarian. There it is. I wanted to pick out the country he's from and say it, but I believe it's Bulgaria. But he's actually kind of a bit of a world traveler. I think he even lived in America or does live in America for a while.
Yeah, he's been around, no doubt about that. He was, I think he's actually Serbian, not Bulgarian, if I recall correctly.
Son of a bitch.
He competed in the recent qualifier. He ended up running up against Patience, now a loss there. Beat up Cass and Kashim in the process. He's been playing a lot more online events lately. Put on some pretty damn good results. A couple of days ago, he 2-0'd Keen, which is quite impressive. Can't really argue with a result like that.
No.
He's been playing a lot of regional events. He ended up running into Mara at the WESG qualifiers, which didn't go very well, as you might imagine.
People that run into Morrow tend to lose.
Yeah, usually that's true, unfortunately. That seems to be a constant of it.
Well, cool.
I'm looking forward to see how he does. You know, this won't be a guy that Sue gets to play against all that often.
Yeah, it's going to be on Whirlwind, which is a big map. So almost immediately, I kind of think mech is something we won't see here. But then even Bio has it. Like, this is a tough map, TVZ. I'm not going to lie. If you get split map in particular, it's really tough. But if it's top left, top right, or bottom left, bottom right, it gets even harder. So he's up against it. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, this is definitely a very difficult matchup. We'll not pretend that BeastyQT is on the same level as Sue. He does pop up from time to time and put on some pretty damn surprising performances. Early on in StarCraft 2, BeastyQT was considered to be one of the top foreign Terrans. He's still around. He's not really been able to put too many results on the board, but you never know. The thing with best of ones is that you can't look at that and say that it's a sure thing one way or the other.
Just want to give a shout out to everyone watching. Obviously, I see Rotterdam tweeting at us, but this tweet wins it for now. This guy said, ShoutCraft Kings, best tournament ever in Canadian Spider Hole. I have to agree. In that slot, this is the best tournament for sure.
Yeah, there aren't all that many Canadian Spider Hole tournaments these days. It's just it's a sign of a dying scene, you know? There used to be so many of them, but that scene has pretty much died off. I think they all went to play League of Legends or something like that, but
yeah,
this is the best remaining one. Let's just put it that way. We're number
Hands
one.
down.
We are number one. To the southeast position in the pink trunks, playing Terran here on Whirlwind, ladies and gentlemen, the challenger, BeastyQT. Versus his opponent to the northeast position, in the blue trunks, playing Zerg, it is Sue.
I will say, in a lot of ways, this is the best kind of spawn for starting positions that BeastyQT could hope for. Good drop pathing to the natural. Obviously, it's tough from there to go to like the third, but you can like poke at the third, drop the natural, drop the main. That's an okay strat. Liberator strong in these positions. And then you are free to expand to the bottom of the map without the Zerg having direct pathing to you, whereas the Zerg has to expand to their, kind of fat side of the map, to the left over there. And that gets a little bit weird for them and stretches the map out. So I still, obviously, Sue is Sue, and BeastyQT is like a semi-active, semi-pro, I think. I don't think he's on a team. I think he streams. I'm not going to try to tell his life story because I obviously thought he was a Bulgarian, which apparently puts me way off. But this is him trying to make a name for himself, which is a cool opportunity.
It really is. If he wins this game, then that puts him right back in the spotlight. And this is the best scenario possible for a player like that. It is just the best of one. Anything can happen. You just have no idea. In the meantime, we're seeing Sue just get these 3 hatcheries up relatively quick, but does get the spawning pools. Not being crazy uber greedy or anything like that, because I don't think I'd be surprised if Sue has ever played BeastyQT, honestly, even with the number of online events that Beasty's been competing in lately.
No, and it was actually pool first and then it's gasless 3 hatch, which makes it really interesting. Very safe against early shenanigans, but on a 4-player map like this, I'm not sure what shenanigans he was necessarily countering. You can pretty safely hatch first here, but I mean, I'm going to trust Sue. Sue knows better. He's probably doing one of those things where he's like, well, I don't know who you are. And usually when that happens, I get like proxy barracks in the middle of the map or something like that, so I'm going to just go ahead and play it safe.
Can't blame him for that. I think that's a pretty damn solid way to do it. If you are the better player, it's generally best to do that, because if you don't and you get caught off guard in a best-of-1 tournament, that's it. You're out. You know, it doesn't matter that you were the better player, because on that map, the other guy was the better player, at least for those few minutes, and that's all that really counts.
And Sue getting a little bit, I wouldn't necessarily call it luck, but a good move. He circles around the lings and actually picks off, well, he doesn't pick off, but he chases off the SCV that was making that natural, so it's just now reassuming, and it's going to be delayed a little bit, but BeastyQT immediately starts another command center behind this, which is the first we've seen of that. We haven't seen a really fast Terran third yet.
No, we have not, and that's an interesting idea, because as it stands, Sue has got only 2 Zerglings and is showing no sign of going into anything else at the moment. Looks like he's focusing for the most part on his economy. The question is, can Sue figure out that this third is coming? And will he be able to correctly respond to it? I mean, having 3 bases that fast as a Terran is just an ideal scenario.
Yeah. Kind of weird here. 2 Lings almost getting a second SCV, but they do get the 1, and they scout. They don't go up the ramp, though, so they don't get to see that third or command center, so that's all fine and good. To your point, though, Sue's in an interesting spot, though, because even if he does see the third, right now, he's getting speed, and he's making a bunch of Lings, but other than that, that's it for his options. So any number of Hellions and Marines should be able to hold off with good positioning, infinite numbers of Lings. So that third could potentially go down for BeastyQT a lot earlier than most Terrans expect it to as well. Yeah. That's all pretty hypothetical, but that's how it's laying out right now. And even a Spore Crawler coming out and a Roach Warren for Sue. Now, the Roach Warren's weird because that's pre-Evo Chambers, that's pre-Lair.
Sue just seems like he doesn't know what his opponent's doing, so he's just picking all the safe options, which usually that would be okay, but I'm just a bit concerned, considering that third CC is going down, that might end up resulting in BeastyQT getting a nice economic boost in the earlier game that could give him more of a shot than otherwise people would have given him credit for.
Yeah. There's definitely a limit to that. It's like it's good to play safe when you are the better player, but if you keep coming back to the idea of like, well, this is the safe choice and this is the safe choice, and I'll defend against these things that I haven't scouted, but if they were to happen, I'd be in a bad spot. All of a sudden, it gets to a point where it's like, well, hey, now BeastyQT is not that much worse than you. Like, you can't...
No, he's still a professional StarCraft 2 gamer. You know, we're not talking about a difference in leagues here. So yeah, I wouldn't mess around too much, and it looks like we're finally seeing some tech on the way. Baneling Nest, double Evo Chamber here from Sue. But as you mentioned, that third base is taking flight at the moment. There is a Zergling looking to scout it. You know, he's a bit suspicious right now. I don't blame him, and he's going to see that third. But here's the question, Mr. iNcontroL Robinson. Even if he does see that third, what does he do about it?
I think he has to let it go. I think his best response would be things like, oh, okay, you took a fast third, I'll add a fourth. He's already finishing up his lair. In fact, I think it did finish.
It did.
There's the additional hatchery. I don't like where he put it at all, but I do like that he's expanding. And then Spire. So we've seen a lot of this from the Korean Zergs. Scarlet has also gone to Korea and kind of taken this in her own play. Mutas were all but non-existent the last year in like 2016. But towards the end of the year, Zergs were finding out that you actually can go mutas in ZVT, and it has a really good place in it. We're seeing more of it.
In come the Lings, and they're able to trap a couple of Marines, but certainly wouldn't want to go up against that many.
No.
Turn away for the time being. I like the fact that BeastyQT is adding a supply depot wall here as well. He's making himself as safe as possible against run-bys, knowing, you know, I'm probably the slower player here, and Sue's going to try and put on the pressure, so let's put stuff in a position. That was maybe the biggest value scan I've ever seen when it comes to killing tumors. He got like 10 of them from that, which was a bargain for BeastyQT, and he evacuates with all of his Marines intact. Combat shield is now also done as well. There's a tank here, and it's like you said, you don't like the position on that fourth hatchery, and I hardly blame you, because BeastyQT is in a perfect pivot position to be able to attack, and he's potentially covered from the rear with a siege tank.
Yeah, he's going to have a few of his units separated here.
Yeah, needs to clean that out. He's actually going to lose the tank, which was a little bit unnecessary. I mean, he's able to defend, of course, but if he'd moved his Marines a little bit further to the right, he would have saved the tank. So losing that kind of sucks.
The only silver lining here is just now 4 meters are started up when Su had saved up to like 1,300 minerals and 700 gas, but he just spent most of that on the upgrades and more links. BeastyQT, I'm not sure if he is on top of his economy the way he needs to be to really capitalize right here. He's not banking up money. He's doing a good job spending it, but I just don't know that he actually has yet to realize that the 4th base is the one right next to him. And I feel like if he had known that, it'd be a much more methodical, consolidated push towards this. And I think he now
definitely knows now. Yeah, the scan definitely got it there. What's interesting about this position is that it is incredibly vulnerable to Liberator harassment. Like, you've got that open void area that's right next to the Terran, which is why putting it there is a bit dodgy. But I guess Su, thinking, you know, he's the better player, he can make that happen. Beastie has been put into a defensive position now, having got those mutas on the map. Su's able to intercept the drops. So the question is, does Beastie get bottled into 3 bases while the Zerg takes 10? It's possible.
Yeah. Well, he did do a good job of fighting back against the creep, but it ended up costing him a decent number of bio where it never should have cost him any bio at all.
That Liberator's
so all of a sudden, the Liberator gets caught. He does see Mutatech, so that's something. But he just doesn't have any teeth to this force to try and threaten that fourth. Excuse me. That got confusing.
There's a real risk he's going to get overwhelmed here, and he does have those tanks at the back, which is great, but Su is not going to engage into that until he has the units for it. The Liberator, as you mentioned, got taken down pretty much immediately. The other one is actually taking a long route around the side, and I don't believe it's been scouted as of yet. That's a pretty sneaky way to do it. It's going to spot the 5th and potentially get on top of the natural, but those mutas will be able to eventually respond, and in fact, Su may already be doing that. I think he might have, he spotted the Liberator now. He's absolutely sure it's there, so it's going to get a couple of kills, but I don't think it's going to do a huge amount of damage.
No, and this would be the time that, with this positioning, he could maybe get on top of that 4th, but he's just now moving out to fight the creep that Su has been so staunch about reproducing. And I don't know. Yeah, he kills a few creep tumors, but that to me is that worth a Liberator?
Probably not. I mean, it was a nice idea to try and sneak around, but I would have liked to see a bigger push and more pressure put on that 4th base, because it is a very audacious 4th. It's the sort of 4th that could be easily pressured by Terran. So it's a shame that he decided to go around the side there. He's now starting to push towards it, and he's got tanks in decent positions. I have a feeling he might get overwhelmed if he's not careful. And as it turns out, it looks like most of the Zerg army is actually heading back and is attempting to break into the natural, which is forcing BeastyQT to retreat. And the wall of supply depots has already fallen, and tanks are going to get caught out here as well.
Yeah, and retreat to what? Like, he's going to take losses here. Sure, he kills the Lings and Banelings, and even that's looking like it's going to be a hard call for him. But, okay, you know the Zerg's going to remake, and they're remaxing on that right now. And it's not a trade. It's you mopping up a terrible mess, and it is a terrible mess.
Yes, it is. There's no doubt. It did quite a lot of damage. It picked off and delayed a lot of production. I love the use of the contamination here as well to delay further production, and Beastie taps out. I don't really blame him. Su was all over him at that point. I think there was definitely a point in that game where Beastie could have taken greater advantage of his position, but he was unable to capitalize on it. And Su, ever the veteran, ever the great player, was able to safely dispose of the Serbian Terran.
Thank you. Good commentator. Got my back there. We got the correction in. Yeah, and this to me is the game that kind of falls into that qualification of like, well, Su is absolute god tier, world class, and BeastyQT capable of giving him a challenge, sure, but it did not happen today. Like every time there was something he probably should have done, like in tangent with his Liberator harass or something like that, he wasn't quite getting it done. He did kill some creep tumors, but still lost Marines, not picking up on time. And then just not really spotting the 4th, and by the time he did spot the 4th, he couldn't do anything about it. So it ended up being a pretty straightforward Su win, and the 3rd of the day for him.
There we go. He's finally able to break the glass ceiling, that we've apparently imposed on every other player up to this point. The question is, can he keep doing that? Because we're heading back to South Korea for our next game.
Okay.
We've got a great little challenge for him in the works. I want to see a little bit more Sue versus Terran. I'm liking that right now. We've seen him versus Mech. I'd like to see him against a really good bio player. That, I think, would be fun to watch.
You and me both.
Well, I think we have the solution to that. And he is hoping he's actually here this time, because he wasn't previously, so we had to switch around a little bit. But hopefully he's here right now, because I'm about to announce him, so we better bloody show up. Here we go, ladies and gentlemen. Our next player for Sue to try and knock him off his throne with a $75 bounty and, of course, $350 for the map on the line will be one of my favorite Terrans of all time. Always entertaining, always well-liked, always enthusiastic. Of course, because his name is Keen.
Ah.
Yeah, I see what I did there.
This guy's cheeky.
I'm a walking thesaurus, Jeff.
A thesaurus or a dad joke generator? I'm trying to decide which one.
I'm going to assume that one supplements the other, honestly.
Yeah.
It's mostly terrible puns, right? So thesaurus knowledge is a prerequisite to that.
Agreed. You've won me over. It's your choice. Dealer's choice. But Keen, like you said, more known for his bio by a pretty long shot. My only concern with that analysis is a lot of these maps push you towards mech a little bit, but Daybreak also a map where it's like, yeah, you can actually do both. You can split the map and go mech, or you can be a pretty fast-paced bio player reliably here.
Yeah. Keen did a lot of work, let me put it that way, in the qualifiers for the upcoming IEM tournament. He played a hell of a lot of games, and he beat some great players. He beat the crap out of Rogue 3-1, which is extremely impressive. He was able to defeat Classic 2-1, which is also ludicrously impressive. However, he lost 2-1 to Bjorn and lost 2-0 to Hero, which I think is the Keen story. Now, prior to that, in another tournament that happens to be sponsored by our tournament here, Ting, we have him beating Zest 2-0, Trust 2-1, and Tails 2-0. But then he loses to Zest in the rematch, and then Hero in a rematch as well. So he can beat anybody on the right day, but he can also lose to anybody on the right day. So it will be an interesting matchup.
Well, to be fair, these anybody's are the who's who of the absolute best. Like, nobody that you just named isn't a major tournament winner that hasn't done it probably several times. And that's why Korea has been such a lion's den. We all know the best players are there. But, and this is, there's no commentary, this is just interesting discussion and analysis, but when the Koreans were basically relegated to the Korean region, it was like saying, hey, you guys are going to be in this amazing ring with only the absolute best. Good luck. And that's why a lot of them were concerned, because they already had that climate, but they could travel out to a much softer area where, yes, they're going to face Koreans, but not every single round. Like you just said, in each of these qualifiers, you're like, after he played this GSL champion, he played that 3-time world champion, and then he lost to that world champion in the rematch. Like, that's why it's so hard to get through all that.
Yeah, even in the online events, like in this $200 online cup, he played 3 GSL champions, 2 DreamHack champions, and a reincarnated MVP who'd come in the form of a deadly Protoss for some reason. He just decided he wanted to switch. That's the sort of situation Korean players find themselves in right now. They try to find refuge in the small online events, and even then they're like, oh, for God's sake. It's like, how many champions do I have to fight in order to get some bloody money these days? You know, they spend every day in the Thunderdome, for God's sake. So you can expect that iron would sharpen iron in this situation. I'm interested to see how that plays out in 2017, because I think if people are expecting the Koreans to get worse just because a few team houses shut down, they're in for a nasty surprise. In the northeast position on Daybreak, ladies and gentlemen, our reigning king of the hill with 3 maps under his belt. In the red trunks playing Zerg, he is Sue. Versus his opponent to the southwest position in the blue trunks playing Terran, his name is Keen.
One thing that's been consistently happening with all these games, with our 2 and now 3-time winners in the tournament, has been the mix-up of strategies, which is really, really cool. Each player so far has not really repeated what they were doing. Yes, Riang did mech, but even then, it was a different flavor of mech, coming back with Hellion, Cyclone, as opposed to going more kind of air superiority into tank. So it's been really cool to see that all these players are really aware of the fact that in a best-of-1 format where your opponent is watching you play, you got to mix things up. And that's kind of a fun dynamic here.
Yeah, you absolutely do. And I think it's the players that are either able to do that or do the good old innovation strategy of I'm going to play the same build knowing that I'm just too good at it, that even if you know it's coming, you can't beat it anyway. That's the only other alternative, and there are very few players that can pull that off. You know, we saw, you know, possibly one of the biggest upsets of the tournament was when Ayasanu was able to defeat 2 top Korean Protoss, and even in the 3rd game that he lost, we saw a massive build variety from him. And it was that flexibility, it was that adaptability that was able to make him so dangerous.
Yep. Yeah, I like, that's, I mean, again, you and I could talk about this for hours, but one of my favorite things about StarCraft is that you're not pigeonholed into doing any one thing. That's been since the beginning of time, with like Boxer having fairly, quote unquote, terrible for how good he was macro, but being just this amazing, innovative and micro-oriented player. Even to StarCraft Net 2 now, where it's like there's a lot of guys who, I think of Riang, the famous Protoss player, who also played the same PvT just about every single game, but defined a meta where it was like, hey, I'm going to see you coming, I'm going to defend it, I'm going to mass up some Colossus, and I'm going to roll over you while taking a third. Like, it's just fun seeing players kind of play their style and show us what's the best way.
Well, I gotta say that Sue's early game aggression seems to be on point. He gets into the base, he catches Keen somewhat off guard, he kills a few SCVs, might even get 3 here, which for 6lings is bargain. He might even get a 4th, which would just actually be ridiculous. He's not allowed that. There we go. 3 is as many as you get. But he also gets a full main scout without having to lose an overlord to get it. I don't think it gets much better than that, really. In the meantime, though, he is dealing with a very good piece of Hellion harassment that has already killed 6 drones.
And doing the same thing, getting a full base scout. Of course, a little bit less important on the Terran side, because most Zergs are going to have very similar looking bases at this stage. If you catch a Roach Warren or something like that, then of course it's a pretty big deal.
Yeah,
but
the 6 drones, though, not bad.
No, that was a certainly very good element to this. A Liberator comes out, and a second one on the way. That's not like the most crazy weird thing, but it is a bit different. A lot of times you see a meta back there to try to get Hellions in the main base, drop Widow Mine, something like that. But just straight Liberator play from here has some pretty cool ability, because these maps, there's a lot of spots where Liberators can hit you and you can't hit them back very well. And that can be tough if you don't. It forces score crawlers too.
Yeah, no doubt. Keen getting another good shot off, kills a drone, looks to try and get a few more. Looks like Sue's not going to allow it to happen again. Missed shot there by Keen, so I don't think he's going to get too many more drones. His Hellion harass so far has really been keeping Sue back, at least for the time being. You know, Sue's having to respect it, but as it stands now with the Hellions cleaned up, I imagine he's thinking, all right, now it's time to look around and see what I can find. But what he's going to find is an effectively impregnable wall here if he tries to move across the map.
Yep, but losing those Hellions means that Keen's map, both awareness but also control, kind of diminishes.
It does.
Those Hellions would otherwise be grabbing the tower, they'd be securing the third, and they're not able to do any of those things as is.
Yeah, nice transfuse there by Sue. Actually unnecessary. The Queen would have survived, but I think about 5 health. But nice moves there. A few drones were killed. We got 4 out of that, but not a brilliant trade for a Liberator, obviously.
No, not for... Especially a Liberator that came out at that time, by the way. This is
that was
a little bit later. Or early, yeah, excuse me.
Yep. There's the deployment. Another Liberator's been put into position, but Sue's already prepared for it, which is going to force Keen to redeploy it. It's not quite in range. There is that 3rd Liberator, though. It's actually right in the middle there. It's able to clean out the tower. That means that Sue has some warning of it coming. But you are right. You know, these are earlier than normal Liberators. It's forcing Sue to adapt to deal with it.
It's getting good intel for Keen, and as long as he doesn't lose them, because that seems pretty unnecessary. Getting the 4 drones, as you said, is kind of close to an okay trade there, but he can't keep repeating that. He can't keep losing Liberators for 3 or 4 drones, because that's not actually a good trade, especially as time goes on. But he's forcing out these 4 crawlers. He's keeping, as you said, Sue back at home. No 4th base started, as the Terrans going to be landing their 3rd. So it's shaping up to be okay for Keen. And as you said, TotalBiscuit, you wanted bio? Well, there it is. 1-1 bio on the way.
We're getting it, no doubt. And that 3rd base at a great time and should be safe for the next couple of minutes. With the Spire on the way, He's going to have to think about that. There's also Baneling speed being added in, so Su would like to contest that area if possible. I don't think he can do it right now, but he's getting to the point where he'll be able to.
And I'll tell you, I hope our mutual friend Nathanius is watching these games, because one of the criticisms about TBZ is that it's very 16 Marine drop every single time, like the same thing. I believe we can say with confidence there hasn't been a single standard TBZ game today just yet. We've seen a lot of TBZ. It's been a lot of mech. Even this game with Keen did not open that way, and it's been fun. It's been fun seeing these players try out different things and try to throw the opponent off.
Yeah, I don't disagree whatsoever. It's been great to see the full variety of these matchups on display here. We need to see a good PvP at some point. That would be nice. I think we've been missing out on that, but Keen's going to try and find a good place for these Liberators to go. One of them is dangerously low on health, so he was certainly rolling the dice there. Trying to find a position on the natural, and, you know, it's an okay place. I mean, bearing in mind that there's no creep spread to the right-hand side of the base, he's a little safer to do that, and he's drawn him out of position and is now moving in on the main as well. In the meantime, you've got this big push towards the fourth, which is a lovely combo, hitting 3 places at once. The Banelings move in, but I mean, these units were already pre-split. With really the Hellbats in the mix, that was a great cleanup. He did use one of those Widow Mines, but that fourth is probably gone now, and that was a great attack, and now he can leave.
Yeah, and he leaves with, I think, most of his units intact. Like, yes, the Banelings connected, but even that is, again, a trade, something we've been talking about all day, but those
and he was pre-split against it anyway, so, you know, you're always going to lose some units in that situation, but he lost, like, bare minimum.
Yep. Did not give him a good connection, and that Widow Mine gets off another shot here. The fourth base is going to be retaken. And the Liberators behind us, by the way, they were obviously the distraction, but each of them got 4 or 5 drone kills at least as well. So
yeah.
Really
that actually puts Keen in a great spot economically. After killing the fourth, he ended up being ahead in terms of workers. Nice little evacuation out there. I love the use of the Widow Mines here. You know, we haven't seen an awful lot of that in TVZ today, and it's proving to be quite effective. It means that Su is having to be extremely cautious about how he engages. The Banelings are at great risk of popping, kind of like that.
Yeah.
Nice little Widow Mine here.
It's always funny seeing Terran play. Like, it still looks so weird to me. There's like 9 Marines there and 5 medevacs, and it's the Zerg that's trying to like pick its fight really carefully.
Yeah,
but
the Widow Mine's been clean now.
All over this.
But great focus fire by Keen, I have to say. Like, just focusing those Banelings down even on the retreat, keeping those Marines alive, to the point where Su actually didn't want to keep fighting. And he may have even had enough to fight that, but he didn't feel confident, and now the parade is on its way from Keen. He's got additional reinforcements to back this up. The medevacs have stayed alive through all of this, which means he's got up to 9 of them now. That's a lot of medevacs. Does he have enough to deal with these mutants? He might, but those Baneling connections up to the top were very good, and finally it seems that Su has been able to clean that army up.
Well, most of it. A lot of it gets evac'd back, and here comes that parade, like you said, just huge cycles of production. Actually, the medevac with all those units is not unloading, but it's Su that's going to have to back up. Su keeps taking these fights off creep, and with Keen's focus fire, as you pointed out, it's becoming very clear you just simply cannot do that against Keen.
It's not working, and that fourth base looks like it's going to go down again. It will. Pretty much uncontested. And just look at how well Keen has kept on top of keeping his medevacs alive. He's at 11 now. That's a huge number at this stage of the game. That's going to make killing anything really hard. I mean, almost every Marine has some personal medevac at this point.
He's also starting a 3rd attack upgrade behind this, and it's Su that's been diverging all of his money into just surviving. So his upgrades have stopped. His tech production has stopped. And he's losing his 4th, as you pointed out, too. So it's like, if he's like holding the 4th, those kind of sacrifices become arguably okay. But when you're not holding the 4th 2 times in a row, then these are just the issues that are putting you further and further behind.
Yeah, I mean, where's the tech for Su? He's got nothing. With these upgrades coming in for Keen, Su's just throwing armies just to try and keep Keen away, and it's not going to work. Now with Marauders in the mix, this is going to be a full cleanup. That might be it. GG. And Su is rapidly obliterated by Keen, proving once again that the caliber of play over there is just so good that anybody can beat anybody.
It is, yeah. I mean, we just got done seeing Su make BeastyQT, obviously not a Keen, but a very good player, look really, really bad.
And he beat Riang as well, you know, worth bearing that in mind.
But I would say, you know, we've had some really good and close games today. This was not one of them. It was good in the sense that if you're a Terran fan or a Keen fan, that was incredibly dominant. But Su got destroyed. Like, every attack was really well done from Keen. apart from, I guess, the first Liberator. But after that, it was like, wow, that was really impressive TVZ.
Yeah, it really was. And we should never underestimate Keen. People keep doing that, and they need to stop. They really do. It's like, we get it. Keen was really, really good back in the day. That doesn't mean that he's fallen off all that much. And the thing is, he's playing a ton of StarCraft at the moment. He's competing in every online event and qualifier there is. So he's grinding out games. I mean, for God's sake, he's playing so many series. Just earlier, the number of games, competitive games, that Keen has actually played this month alone is ridiculous. Like, if we go to his form, I believe in the last few months he has played 312 competitive games.
Sure.
Which is ludicrous. And I mean, even recently in January, he took part in an event called the SC2 SEA OSC Championship. Might want to maybe rebrand that a little bit, but hey.
Oh.
And he played in one day 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 best of fives.
What?
And he won all of them with the exception of 2 TVTs.
You have to be reading that. There's not
no,
10 best of fives in a single day.
I'm not, unless a legal lack is incorrect, which is unlikely. He played 10 best of fives in one frickin' day, and he won the vast majority of them. That's ridiculous. That's superhuman, even.
I mean, at DreamHack, we would commentate like 6 best of fives in a day and be exhausted. He played 10. Okay.
That's nuts. That's bonkers. So don't underestimate Keen. Keen's stamina right now is insane, and if you are able to get that number of competitive games in against great players, you are gonna get better. You don't have a choice. You have to get better.
Yep.
Impressive.
Agreed.
Well, I'd like to see a little bit more of Keen's versus Zerg. What do you think?
Yes, if the last game's any indicator, more please.
We can do that. I've been chasing down this player for quite some time, and he's just eluded me. I believe this is the first time we've been able to actually bring him into Kings, so I'm glad to see him. And let's see if he's able to put on a good performance. His name is Bial.
All right. One of the absolute best.
Currently ranked number 14 in the world, number 9 in South Korea. I mean, he was known, I remember his Pro League run. It was either last year or the year before that where he was just unbeatable. He was an absolute monster. He's been playing well in qualifiers. He's been playing well in online events. It's just scary to see all these great players now in online events. I believe he's qualified for the round of 16. He beat Lacira and Forte. He lost to Innovation, so he went through in second place there. He also came off, I think, last week playing 11 games against Maru. Unfortunately, he did lose 9 of them. Worth bearing that in mind, but it is Maru.
Yeah, I mean, it becomes something if you beat Maru. That's where it's really notable, which of course he has in the past. But
yes, you know.
I would also say Biol was one of the players that, again, kind of like a Riang, was a ZBT sniper of sort a while ago.
He was for a while, yeah.
Yeah, he had really good ZBT. I mean, of course he still does now, but he was like typified by that, I would say.
Well, we'll see how he can compete here. You know, these are 2 relatively old-school combatants, the Wrecking Biol versus Keen. I'm looking forward to seeing how he does. Biol has been something of a mainstay lately in the Olima League as well. He was in the January finals. He did lose out 2-0 to Billowy, of all people.
You said the Wrecking Biol?
The Wrecking Biol, of course.
I've never heard that, but...
He comes in like a Wrecking Biol.
I know. That's naturally. The funny thing, like, I can never, if someone ever says Wrecking Ball, I can never picture anything other than Miley Cyrus on top of the Wrecking Ball. I'm pretty sure someone photoshopped Biol's face onto Miley Cyrus during that. It was that time when Biol was winning every Pro League game, and I'm fairly sure that someone was able to make that Photoshop as a result. So it kind of stuck for a while. Scary, I wouldn't say it wasn't adorable. That one's not adorable. That's just sexy.
It was not. Yeah. He was like a stupid, sexy pinata up there. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Echo LA. It's my pleasure to bring you the current challenger in the red trunks playing Zerg to the northwest position. He is Bial. Versus his opponent to the southeast position, our reigning king of the hill, who dispatched, frankly, with ease, our reigning champion Sue. Will he be able to put a streak on I mean, he only has to win 3 maps to beat the current reigning streak this particular month. It's just not a good month for those who want to stay on the throw. That would tie it. Yeah, if he wins 3 maps, he'd tie. If he wins 4 total, then he would be on top. Let's see if he can do it. He's in the blue, playing Terran to the southeast. He is keen.
No, it'll be fun. We're seeing really high level from these players. This is like, what a nice tournament to have in January, where it's like, let's get a kind of smattering, a taste of each of these players. These are all big names that we've seen before. But like everything else in StarCraft, there's been highs and lows for them. All of them. All of them have had absolute huge highs and I wouldn't say absolutely low lows, but just not up to their standard. And it's kind of fun seeing across the board, these guys have not dropped off at all. Zest looked like really good Zest. Innovation and Dark, of course, had a little bit more of a tougher time, but still looked good. It's been nice seeing all this, is I guess the long story short here.
Yeah, I mean, you can argue that putting Dark into a ZVZ was a bit mean, especially against Sue, who, frankly, is ridiculous at the moment in that matchup, but ultimately, it's a tournament. You're going to face up against someone from all 3 races. You're going to have to deal with the eventual possibility that you run into someone really nasty in that regard. Dark hasn't really got a huge amount of success in Kings up to this point. You could just argue he's had bad opponents and you don't get a second chance, but eventually I'm sure he will devastate the board. He's just going to have the right lineup to do it. But yeah, Innovation has been known to pull off ridiculous streaks, and then he'll show up in almost every Kings event, and more often than not, he'll just bomb out in 1 map. But when he does go, he goes for days. Now, he goes on a really big tears if he can just get a little bit of momentum going. So it's intriguing. We don't see this format all that often. So the way that players perform is often highly unusual.
Yeah, and I almost, in defense of the ZVZ, by the way, I'm totally cool with it. Like, obviously, I'm a huge Dark fan as well, and you always want to see the ZVTs, the ZVPs. Mirror matchups a little bit less glamorous, but this is a tournament where it's supposed to be pretty punishing. It's supposed to be really hard players in really hard situations.
Yep.
And playing for a decent chunk of change, so we're seeing them give it their all. And, well, maybe it would be cool to see Dark only do ZVZs every single month. This month, it was a ZVZ against another player that is absolutely incredible, and he fell short. So, if anything, you should tune in to ShoutCraft Kings next month and see if he plays somebody else, if he even shows up. Just come back.
Yeah. It's not even just a decent chunk of change anymore. I was actually talking to Innovation prior to this. He was in the Stage 2 IEM EU qualifiers, and if he won and went on a streak, he was prepared to forfeit the Katowice qualifiers to continue to play Kings, and that was because, in his words, 350, or, in the case of getting bounties, $375 a map is a really good amount of money.
Yeah.
I mean, it is. If you think about it.
It just is.
If you're living, fairly Spartan in South Korea, win just 3 maps, and that's most of your monthly expenses sorted to be a pro StarCraft player. You're not going to be living in luxury, but that's going to keep you going. And for 3 maps, that's ridiculous. You don't find other tournaments that pay out that much for that. So if you did the dollar on a per minute basis, I think Kings would probably be right up the top, unless you're talking about WESG, which is like, we're going to give you $5 million. We can't compete with that. I'm sorry. China apparently just has too much money now.
That's fine. They're giving some of it back, so that's nice of them.
Totally fine.
But also, it's a one-day tournament is the other thing here, too. It's not like we're asking for Innovation to keep coming back 1 day a week for the next 3 or 4 or something like that, which is fine. I'm not hating on that format, but it's just cool. These guys show up, they play top matches, they get paid.
Let's just put it this way. There's a lot of tournaments of that format, which is why I think having this one is great. And that seems to be something that both players and the viewers agree with. Now, in the meantime, Keen has once again gone for his Hellion approach. However, Biol this time around going for the Roaches, saying, right, I've seen what you can do with those. I'm not going to let you do that again. We've got Ravagers on the way as well. So it looks like Keen is going to be forced into a more defensive position, is getting bunkers and tanks.
Well, he's being led to believe that that's necessary, TotalBiscuit. Behind this, it's more drones, it's upgrades, it's a lair.
Sneaky.
But we don't know that, or Keen doesn't know that more accurately.
No.
And if he did know that, he wouldn't be building all those defenses. But he's being put into a position where he's not sure if this is an all-in behind that. That's really smart play from Biol, because he's just doing standard stuff behind this, but he is forcing the Terran to not do standard stuff, which is throwing him off, making him spend money, and slowing him down.
Yeah, it's keeping him bottled up, which is exactly what Keen did not do in the previous game. That's why he was so successful against Sue, which is why it's super important to bear in mind that these guys are watching the tournament and they're able to adapt on the fly to what their opponent is doing. And by that, I don't mean they're currently watching the current map. That wouldn't get them very far. There's a big delay on the stream. But they're watching the previous maps, and that gives them an idea of how their opponent is going to play. And we do see, more often than not, that a player will stick to the build that got them a win. Not always, but for the most part. And that could actually cost them the whole tournament, because usually that would be a decent strategy if it was a best of 3 or best of 5. It doesn't work out so well in Kings.
Yeah. No, and that's actually what makes the previous big streaks so impressive, is that not only did they win that many games in a row, they won that many games against really, really good players that watched them play those other games.
Yeah.
And like you said, they more often than not will do the same build or they'll mix it up. But to me, the inevitable value of watching someone play is maybe they don't do the exact same build, but you get to see tendencies. You get to see, okay, they do this thing. They tend to focus here. So you can still, even if you're not hard counting a specific build, you are getting information on the player, and that is of value.
That is, without question, the truth. All right, Keen has a little bit more flexibility now. I think he's realized that that was a bit of a fake out, that he certainly overcommitted to defense. He rapidly got his third base out and is trying to play catch up at the moment. He now has his Hellions back on the map once again. They're not probably going to get a huge amount done, but they'll certainly be useful against the number of Lings and Banelings. He might be able to pick off a few Banes before they connect, and it's going to give him an idea of where his opponent is, how far his opponent's creep spread is out, whether or not his opponent has taken a 4th base, which he doesn't know as of yet, but I think if he gets an idea of where, well, I think he knows now, because he just saw drones heading down in that direction with that scan. So I think he's got a pretty safe idea of what's going on at the moment.
He's got a good force moving out. The couple of tanks are actually a big deal. That AoE damage can really put a hurting on a cluster of Banelings. It doesn't one-shot them, but it softens them up enough that everything else basically thins them out pretty quickly. This attack's coming just before Mutas. So here we go. We're going to try to get a surround.
Ooh, can he get it? I mean, he's trying. He really is trying. The Hellbat's now morphing in. I think he realizes he's got to fight here. He's using, well, he tried to use the medevac to micro the tank, but that did not work. And the Zerg army now overrunning the Terran. You might think, oh, it's terrible. Well, actually, that was not all of the Terran army by any stretch of the imagination. And if the Zerg had continued to engage into that fortified area, he would have taken a lot of damage from the Widow Mines.
Yeah, but now 14 mutas and still more of that, with 2-2 about to finish up. Biol pushing that back and not having any losses to like creep tumors or the 4th base itself means that he's in an extremely comfortable position. If these 4 medevacs could somehow get to a place where they're not seen and then drop on a base, that'd be one thing. But they're spotted here. Yeah. They're outside of any point of relevance. They're not going to threaten much. They're going to walk out and then have to pick up and leave. At best, maybe they just die.
Yeah, assuming they don't die to the mutas, which is entirely possible. You know, he tries to go after that 5th. It ain't happening. He needs to get out now. And he realizes, hey, well, I've got the reinforcements. Maybe I can hold this position, pivot off the Widow Mine. And he does, driving the Zerg back briefly. The question is, does he keep going with this? He now knows how many mutas the opponent has. It's a dicey prospect.
Yeah. But it's one that I think he's forced into. He sees the 5th base and says, well, I have to stop that.
Yeah.
That can't happen. And with the good spacing of the Widow Mines and, of course, Keen's amazing micro, he's going to try to make the trade here. He's going to try to exchange. Not trade army, per se, but, you know, get the Zerg to fight off creep, pick off the Banelings, that kind of thing.
Yep, and does he have Widow Mines in position? Well, unfortunately, he does not. Wow, that was a big detonation of Banelings. Now he's going to have to pull back, but he doesn't lose the medevacs, so that's not too terrible. Where are the Mutalisks at the moment? They're sharking around down to the south of the map. What's interesting is that we actually see a 4th, or indeed a 5th base going down to the southwest position. Keen currently going in for a drop. He gets a decent enough position, but is going to have to leave. Eventually, that drop's going to die, of course. There's too many mutas scaring it off. But yeah, Biol's base is in the southwest right now.
Yeah.
Keen knows, too. He's going for it.
It feels like he has to go there, but this Bioforce, like you said, is going to show up and cancel that.
Yeah. That ain't happening. Needs to deploy those Widow Mines right now. In fact, might be a little bit too late on that. The Widow Mines get wiped out before detonations. That is dicey. A lot of Banelings, although they do detonate against a lot of Marauders. Will there be enough Zerg? The Mutas were way far behind there, which certainly doesn't help. But now they're here. That will clean up the remainder of that Terran army. And Keen is going to be forced back again into a defensive position, having lost a lot of units.
Yeah, he's down 60 supply. It was the multi-angle approach from Biol that really won the day. If he comes from one spot and Keen is able to kite backwards, good luck trying to score massive wins there. I think we do have a drop at the natural, though. And this might be I think it's just Lings fighting at the natural. Oh, it's just a small drop, though.
Yeah, it wasn't too big. It really didn't get a lot of damage done. Like, Keen he doesn't have the spare units, I don't think, to even do an aggressive drop at the moment. I mean, look at the control of the map that Biol has. The creep spread is getting ridiculous. It's more than halfway across. That southwest base is going to fall. The question is how much Terran will be lost for that.
Yeah, it's kind of looking like all
of it, yeah.
You just get in there. They were kind of waiting for the Benevex to try to... And one still sneaks out. They're so damn fast. Actually gets ran down. But, yep, as seen here, the Natural's drying up. I don't think there's even defenses for the Mutas, so they're going to show up and be really annoying. But that's the least of Keen's worries, because outside of that, more Lings, more Banelings, and I don't know. He can't be everywhere at once.
No, I wouldn't say so. This is turning into a bit of a rout here. Biol seems to have got the number of Keen, and he's overwhelming him in every respect. The Widow Mines are nice, but they're not getting the connections they need to make it work. Biol has figured that out. He's not going to run straight into them, and I think this is going to be it by the looks of it. An overwhelming swarm of Zerg, wave after wave, impacting against what's left of the defenses. Not an awful lot. Pretty awkward spot for those Banelings to be in, but there's so many of them, I don't think it matters at this point.
Nope. He's even going to kill the Orbital. I mean, this is Keen's swan song. G and G is called. And again, just like Keen before him, I would say Biol makes Keen look pretty bad. I mean, he just annihilated.
It's just funny how that ends up going, isn't it?
Yep.
Well. Biol disposes of Keen quite nicely. Keen looking... It's strange, isn't it? Because you see such a similar build to what he did against Sue and how badly he mauled Sue with it, and then he just got his arse handed to him in a fairly dominant fashion there by Biol.
Yeah, it's not even that he necessarily like super changed things up to hard counter Keen. It's just that he executed a lot better, probably had a fairly good idea of what was probably coming, and just didn't allow for any of it to do any damage, really.
No. He did not. Nicely done there by Biol. Picking up a nice little chunk of change right there. And that takes us on to, I believe, yeah, our last 4 players of the evening in Group 5. Biol currently reigning on top of the hill. We do have some interesting players left, however. I'm intrigued to see whether or not Biol can hold on. This is maybe the best time to do it. As people have probably noticed, we tend to put on most of the Koreans at an earlier time, for obvious reasons, because it's crazy o'clock over there at this time of night. But we do certainly have one hell of a Korean player left, and a few top-end foreigners for the last few games. This is a good opportunity for Biol to perhaps extend his streak. If he can overcome the last remaining Korean player and then beat the foreigners, then he could be on top of the hill for next month, which would be fantastic. He'd cash in a lot of money there. But that's by no means a sure thing. As we've seen all throughout today, people don't tend to live very long on the hill these days.
Yep. This is the time to do it. The Koreans are tired that are remaining, and like we were talking about earlier, the problem is not winning 1 or 2 games. It's maintaining 3, 4, 5 games against all these guys. It just becomes more doable at the end.
Yeah, it's nigh on impossible. You know, it's a very hard thing to do. But we'll see if Biol can be the person to do it, or whether he'll be knocked off the hill as quickly as his other brethren. We're going to go to a break, folks, and hear a few words from our sponsor, ShoutCraft.ting.com. Mobile that makes sense. We'll be right back after this break to take you through the final group of ShoutCraft Kings January 2017. Don't go anywhere, we'll be right back.
There are a few options if you're looking for a phone to use with Ting. You can bring a phone you already own, You can buy a phone from the Ting shop that's guaranteed to work, or you can go it alone and buy a phone from somewhere else. We'll walk you through your options. If you already own a phone, there's a good chance it'll work on Ting. Bringing a phone to Ting is easy. To check if your phone is compatible, just open up the dialer screen. Punch in *#06#. The number that appears is your phone's unique IMEI number. This number string tells us a fair bit about your phone. Open a browser on your computer and go to ting.com/BYOD. Input your IMEI here. You'll get an answer right away as to whether your phone will work on Ting. You'll also see which services your phone supports. The more circles that light up green, the better. For example, if your phone supports 4G or LTE, you'll get the fastest data speeds available when you're in an LTE network zone. If your phone isn't compatible, or if you're looking for a new or refurbished phone to use with Ting, the Ting shop is your best bet. Here you'll find an array of phones that are guaranteed to work with Ting. Everything from the newest iPhone and Android phones to entry-level smartphones, flip phones, and even refurbished phones. We also link directly to Ting-compatible devices from reputable shops like the Google Store and Apple Store. The third option is to go it alone and buy a new or used phone from somewhere else. In either case, you want to be sure the phone will work with Ting before you commit. For new phones, ensure you're buying an unlocked device and that the device supports Ting's network frequencies. Ting offers service on both the GSM and the CDMA network. We'll talk about what those networks mean in another video in this series. If you're buying used, don't buy unless the seller is willing to give you the phone's IMEI. Run this IMEI number through the Ting compatibility checker to confirm it will work on Ting. In the end, it's the age-old advice, if the deal looks too good to be true, it probably is. When in doubt, give us a call at 1-855-846-4389 and talk through your options with a real person. Thanks for watching.